Hello, ghouls, and welcome to Brave the Basement. I'm your host, Ghoul That Rules. Black 1, Jack 2 couldn't be with us today due to a scheduling conflict, so it is just me. If you enjoy getting a little scared, ghost stories, haunted houses, a believer in the supernatural, or maybe even a skeptic wanting to look at things from a different perspective, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is sponsored by Ed's Barbershop. Ed's Barbershop is located at 210 Lane Street, North Judson, Indiana. So if you enjoy getting your hair cut from a hometown barber with that old-fashioned feel, then dial 574-896-3344 and schedule your appointment today. So this is normally when I say, hey, Blackjack, how's it going? And he says, all right, what are we talking about today? And the significance of me bringing that up is last week we did an episode on psychic powers and ESP, and we put Blackjack to the test, and I asked Blackjack to use his psychic abilities and predict what this episode was going to be about. His prediction was a haunted mansion. Today's episode is not about a haunted mansion, so he was incorrect in his prediction. Today's episode is about a haunted boat. The haunted boat we're going to be talking about today is the Queen Mary. Resting in Long Beach Harbor is the RMS Queen Mary, a colossal ship that was bigger, faster, and more powerful than the Titanic. The 1,000-foot ship began her life when the first keel plate was laid in 1930 at the John Brown Shipyard in Clyde, Scotland. The Depression held up her construction between 1931 and 1934, but she was finally completed, making her maiden voyage on May 27, 1936. For 3 years, the Grand Ocean Liner hosted the world's rich and famous across the Atlantic, including the likes of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, David Niven, Mary Pickford, George and Ira Gershwin, and Sir Winston Churchill, just to name a few. Considered by the upper class to be the only civilized way to travel, she held the record for the fastest ever North Atlantic crossing. When World War II broke out in 1939, luxury travel immediately ceased, and the ship was transformed into a troop ship that would become known as the Grey Ghost. During this time, her capacity was increased from 2,400 to 5,500. By the end of World War II, the ship carried more than 800,000 troops, traveled more than 600,000 miles, and played a significant role in virtually every major Allied campaign. She also survived a collision at sea, set the record for carrying the most people ever on a floating vessel, and participated in the D-Day invasion. At the close of the war, the ship began to transport more than 22,000 war brides and their children to the United States and Canada. Known as the Bride and Baby Voyages, she made 13 voyages for this purpose in 1946. Its duty to the war complete, the Queen Mary was refurbished and resumed her elegant cruises in July of 1947, maintaining weekly services between Southampton and New York. However, by the early 1960s, transatlantic cruises were falling out of fashion due to air travel becoming affordable for the masses. In 1963, the ship began a series of occasional cruises, first to the Canary Islands and later to the Bahamas. However, without central air conditioning, outdoor pools, or other amenities now commonplace on cruise ships, she proved ill-suited for the work. In 1967, she was withdrawn from service after more than 1,000 transatlantic crossings. That same year, the Queen Mary was sold for $3.45 million to the city of Long Beach, California, for use as a museum and hotel. On December 9, 1967, she made her final voyage to Long Beach. After more than 1,000 successful Atlantic crossings, she was permanently docked and soon became the luxury hotel that she is today. So this was a pretty famous ship, and after it became a museum and a hotel, it became extremely famous for its paranormal activity. Internationally recognized, the historic floating hotel and museum attracts thousands of visitors every year. It has also attracted a number of unearthly guests over the years. In fact, some say the Queen Mary is one of the most haunted places in the world, with as many as 150 known spirits lurking upon the ship. Over the past 60 years, the Queen Mary has been the site of at least 49 reported deaths, not to mention having gone through the terrors of war, so it comes as no surprise that spirits of her vivid past continue to walk within her rooms and hallways. Located 50 feet below water level is the Queen Mary's engine room, which is said to be a hotbed of paranormal activity. Used in the filming of the Poseidon adventure, the room's infamous Door 13 crushed at least 2 men to death. At different points during the ship's history, the most recent death, during a routine watertight door drill in 1966, crushed an 18-year-old crew member. Dressed in blue coveralls and sporting a beard, the young man has often been spied walking the length of Shaft Alley before disappearing by room 13. Two more popular spots for the Queen's otherworldly guests are its first and second class swimming pools. Though neither are utilized today for their original purpose, spirits seemingly are not aware of that. In the first class swimming pool, which has been closed for more than 3 decades, women have often been seen appearing in 1930s style swimming swimsuits, wandering the decks near the pool. Others have reported the sound of splashing and wet footprints leading from the deck to the changing rooms. Some have also seen the spirit of a young girl clutching her teddy bear. In the second class pool room, the spirit of another little girl named Jackie is often seen and heard. Allegedly, the unfortunate girl drowned in the pool during the ship's sailing days and has refused to move on. Her voice, as well as sounds of laughter, have been captured here. In the Queen's Salon, which once served as the ship's first-class lounge, a beautiful young woman in an elegant white evening gown has often been seen dancing alone in the shadows of the corner of the room. More odd occurrences have been made in a number of first-class staterooms. Here, reports have been made of a tall, dark-haired man appearing in a 1930s-style suit, as well as water running and lights turning on in the middle of the night, and phones ringing in the early morning hours with no one on the other end of the line. In the third-class children's playroom, a baby's cry has often been heard, which is thought to be the infant boy who died shortly after his birth. Other phenomena occurred throughout the ship are the sounds of distinct knocks, doors slamming, and high-pitched squeals, drastic temperature changes, and the aromas of smells long past. These are but a few of the many reports of apparitions and strange events occurring at this luxury liner turned hotel. So people are having experiences almost every time they visit. It is extremely famous for its paranormal activity. And today I have a special treat. I have some audio from a couple tour guides who give daily tours aboard the Queen Mary. And I hope everyone at home will enjoy these. I know I had a good time listening to these audio clips as well. So here are 2 tour guides telling some ghost stories on the Queen Mary.
In January of 2017, one of our former crew members boarded the onboard elevators right over here. She boarded them down on our deck, one deck below where we are now. When she stepped into the elevator, she said that there was no one there. But when the elevator doors closed, she looked in the reflection on the doors. She said that she saw a woman wearing a long white gown standing directly behind her. She turned around quickly. The elevator was empty. She turned back. This woman was gone in the reflection. That former crew member was the second crew member that we have lost because of an experience like that in one of our passenger elevators here. It's possible that she may have seen what we call the woman in white. A woman who's described as being very elegant yet somewhat sad, roaming throughout the ship. She's been seen in the third-class main lounge, the first-class main lounge. We've had sightings of her in the lounge at Sir Winston's, the dining room of the Promenade Cafe, and there have also been sightings of her in some of our hotel rooms. So if any of you happen to be staying on board, have fun. We're going to continue up from here. Back in June of 2016, one of our security officers reported that when she entered this corridor, At approximately 2:15 in the morning, after shutting down our observation bar, she noticed a little girl standing in the middle of the hallway. She thought it was odd that at such an early hour of the morning there was a little girl unattended in the middle of our hotel corridor. As she started to approach the little girl to ask her if she was lost, she said that the little girl raised her arms as though she wanted to be picked up, and then simply disappeared. The apparition of a little girl has been reported throughout the Queen Mary, so often that she even has a name. We call her Jackie. And those who have reported seeing Jackie describe her as being approximately 6 to 8 years old with curly blonde hair, usually seen wearing a pinafore over a light-colored dress. Most of the time, though, Jackie is seen in our first-class swimming pool, which many claim to be the single most haunted location on board the Queen Mary. A little more on that later. This way. We'll be walking down 3 decks to go take a little peek at the first-class swimming pool. Careful on the stairs. I'll tell you why later. So this is probably the most asked about room on board the Queen Mary, the entrance to our first-class swimming pool. Now, why is it the most asked about room on board the ship? Well, many parapsychologists believe that located in the changing rooms of our first-class swimming pool, there is a vortex, said to be a whirlpool of electromagnetic energy that acts as a portal between our world and the next. Some psychic investigators have even claimed it has allowed anywhere from 300 to 600 spirits access to the Queen Mary. We've also had a number of reported sightings inside this room. Sightings of a woman in a white tennis skirt seen walking down the stairs at the forward end of the room down to the lower deck, where she disappears behind one of the pillars. We've had sightings of a woman in a 1930s-style bathing suit appear at the edge of the swimming pool, dive into it, and vanish. Wet footprints have been known to materialize alongside the swimming pool. In April of 2010, while guiding a tour through this room, a guest pointed out what appeared to be wet footprints leading from the swimming pool back into the changing rooms and into one stall in particular where they simply stopped. I should also point out that our swimming pool has been drained for over 26 years now. There's no water in it. But this is the room where Jackie tends to make her presence known, that spirit of a little girl I mentioned earlier on our tour. When she does appear in the first-class swimming pool, it's usually behind one of the pillars, peeking out. We've also had reported sightings of her skipping, dancing, sometimes singing, laughing, crying inside the room. Now, because Jackie does tend to appear here in the first-class swimming pool, it has led a number of our guests to believe that she may have drowned here. But in all of our research, we have never discovered any record of anyone drowning on board the Queen Mary. So to this day, it is still referred to as a rumored drowning. We don't know the exact truth as to why Jackie is here with us on board the Queen Mary. Back in August of 2012, one of our many tour guides reported that when he entered this area of the ship from the hotel corridor on the starboard side, approaching the third-class main staircase, he saw what appeared to be a gentleman dressed entirely in black, walking up the last few steps of the staircase. He said that there was nothing out of the ordinary about this until that man reached the top of the stairs and suddenly vanished. The tour guide did mention this to one of his supervisors later that day. The supervisor informed him that he had seen a ghost, commonly known as the Man in Black, and explained that the third-class main staircase was where 2 of the Queen Mary's passengers had in fact lost their lives. It is the steepest passenger stairway on board the ship. There's also another problem with it. The stairs are located toward the bow, the forward end of the ship, which would be rising and then falling with every single wave on the North Atlantic, so it could be a little difficult to maneuver these stairs at times. It turns out that a number of the passengers on board the Queen Mary did lose their footing while walking up or down the stairs, fell down to the deck below, did not survive their injuries. It is generally believed that this Man in Black was one of those 2 passengers. There have been over 24 reported sightings of him on this section of the third-class main staircase here in Long Beach. And as for the tour guide who reported seeing him back in 2012, well, that tour guide still works on board, still does tours. And he tells his tours about his experience in the third person.
So welcome to B340. This room has not been occupied since the mid-'80s, of course. And some of the occurrences that led to that was hotel guests checking into the room and complaining that the lights would go on and off behind themselves, that the water in the bathroom would start and stop. One housekeeper came into the room one day, and the beds in those days were on this side, and made the bed perfectly, and went outside into the alleyway to her cart to get some towels for the bathroom. And when she came back in, she found the bed that she had just made all rumpled up and crumpled up in the floor. And so she went and reported that, and at that point, with all of the guest complaints, or comments, I like to say, instead of complaints, might have been complaints back then because people weren't as open-minded about paranormal activity as they are today. The company decided not to rent the room anymore, and it was turned into a series of offices. But over the last 20 years, I can tell you it was gutted to the floor. There was nothing in here. It was just, it looked very depressing. The psychic Kim Russo, who works on that A&E television show, The Haunting of, came in here with soap opera star Kristen Renton. And Kim Russo walks through the door and is just overcome right from the start. And she says, "Oh my God, oh my God." And she walks around the room, and after a few minutes of just some of the strangest looks I've ever seen on a person's face, she looked at me and she said, "I believe someone was restrained and tortured here." That's neither here nor there. That's her perception, which we don't know. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. There's a story when the ship was at sea. Again, the bed was in the side of the cabin of a female passenger in mid-Atlantic. Was awakened in the middle of the night. The covers had been pulled off of her, and there was a man in a dark suit or uniform at the foot of the bed. She immediately reached across and pressed the button for this to call the steward, whose pantry was just right over here. And the steward comes running over, and she says, "Did you see him? Did you see him?" And he says, "Madam, what are we talking about? Did you have a dream?" She says, "No, there was a man at the foot of my bed. He pulled the covers off of me." And he said, "Madam, I've been there the whole time. There's no one there." And so maybe whatever there is about Mary has been with Mary a very long time.
So I hope you guys all enjoyed these couple stories from these tour guides on the Queen Mary. In the very first story, I really like the background music because it just feels like you are back in time when this would have been a luxury cruise liner. It gave it a really neat feeling. If you would like to become a Brave the Basement Ghoul, be sure to share this show on social media. Go to bravethebasement.weebly.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest news and updates when each episode has been posted. If you have a ghost story you would like to share, you could reach us at bravethebasement@gmail.com. Your story can make it on the show and be featured on the website. You can also submit your story on Reddit under the subreddit Brave the Basement or in the YouTube comment section. If you have an eerie ghost photo you would like to share, please email us and include a description, and your photo could be added to our photo gallery. And that brings us to the end. We hope that we brought you just a little fright. And remember, when you are up late at night and you hear something in the other room that just doesn't seem right, it's okay if you need to turn on the light to protect yourself from things that go bump in the night. I'm your host, Ghoul That Rules, and I hope you join us again. Until next time.